Well, hey, everyone. Welcome to our Weeds in the Garden podcast. This is episode 1, and we've got a very special guest.
Episode 1.
Yeah, episode 1.
Right.
A little bit better than the prequels.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Oh, my goodness. Well, hey, so Chad, we just started this new series, Weeds in My Garden.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you who missed it, you can be sure to catch it on our social media channels. Mm-hmm. But we wanted to continue the conversation through this series, through this podcast, and give everybody who speaks on the stage to have an opportunity to talk a little bit more about the topic at hand. And so this was week one. And week one, you started with this survey from our church, from Refinery Christian Church, about how we're doing as a church with our mental health. And I'm just curious, from your end, what surprised you about that? Maybe what didn't surprise you? What did surprise you?
I don't know that there was anything that was overwhelmingly shocking to me or outside of what I was expecting, with the exception of one of the statistics showed that like 85% of our people claim that they have a close friend who they could confide in. And so that, to me, was extremely encouraging. And so, and that's way high above the
national average is like
50%.
Okay.
So we were way high in that. So maybe being a part of a church automatically lends some to that being naturally higher.
Yeah.
But maybe we could have maybe phrased that question a little better. If I was going to do that again, we might alter that a little bit and ask if people have a friend that they 100% trust, they confide in, that confides in them, almost a person that holds them accountable, will speak truth to them, even when it's difficult. That's what I would define as a close friend. And I would think that that number is probably a lot smaller. But it doesn't surprise me because 73% of the people that filled out the survey were female, and we know that those relationships are easier for females than they are for males.
Okay.
So those closer relationships like that. So there's a higher number of females that responded, so maybe that number is higher. So maybe had more males responded to the survey, that number would have probably come down. As men would have probably said no.
Do you feel like some people maybe go to a counselor because they don't have a close friend? Do you feel like there's a certain element of that?
I really do.
Okay.
I think we have a gap, and we're trying to address that as a church with some mental health coaches. They're not counselors, they're not psychologists, but they're more than a prayer partner. They're kind of a frontline, kind of a trauma kind of person. Because I think a lot of people who don't have that close friend or don't know how to have those conversations, it's easier to pay someone to be your friend. And I think a lot of times people go to counseling that those issues could be dealt with in a healthy way if they just had honest relationships in their life. Maybe if they were even part of a life group, a group of people that they were doing life together with that were like-minded, that would share some of their same goals, so they wouldn't feel alone or isolated or have a space to talk about those things. And so if they don't have those, sometimes it's easier just to pay a counselor than to let some other people into your life.
Yeah.
And so counseling's expensive, and so I don't think it should be financially draining to have a friend.
Right.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be. So we're going to put some of these people in between, so that hopefully we can gauge the people that really need counseling.
Right.
We can get them there, and believe me, that's what we want to do. But there may be some that just need a partner to walk with them just for a couple of weeks or months, or just to give advice and counsel and just to cheer them on even.
Like last night we had our life group, and I made point, like, I don't know how people make it without like community.
Yeah.
How they make it without church. Like, how do you move? How do you go through some kind of like crisis in your life, like without people, without friends? And there's a lot of people that are they're living solo.
Yeah.
And they are alone.
So unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So going back to that survey, was there anything that was like on par where you saw these statistics and you thought, yep, that's right? Whether that's, a good statistic or one that's, a little, a little more on the sad side.
Well, I think one of the saddest one was by far that we have nearly 11% of those people that had thought about suicide in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
And so these are people that are in church, active enough in church to fill out a crazy survey.
Yeah.
You know, they're more than just bystanders or more than just kind of fly by. They're engaged at some level who are still, so 11% of those people are still considering or have thought about taking their own life. Oh man, that's really disheartening to me.
And that's roughly how many people per service?
Between 35 and 40 a service.
Wow.
You know, so as we said in the auditorium, you look around and
You're surrounded by those people.
yeah, you're surrounded by people who are having those thoughts.
Yeah.
And so, and so it's kind of disheartening to me that there's that number, but that's a national average number.
Right.
And so I would hope that that number would have been less for people that are actively involved in the church and what that looks like. And so if we're really speaking into people's lives and value and creating spaces for them to talk about things and to really see, understand, feel, experience the love of Jesus, I would think that those numbers would go down drastically. So, but that's what we're finding out. We're learning who we are, and
Yeah.
we're learning what we don't know right now. It's one of the reasons why we wanted to do this,
Yeah.
because it is so important.
Yeah.
We need to get this right.
Yeah, we do.
And we want to be not just bystanders with people. We want to be a part of the conversation. We want to walk through life with people in this. We're willing to grip the plow, as our core value says, and get messy with people. And so we're learning at the same time, as a lot of people are.
So Sunday, when you started the series, you talked about 4 buckets. What are those 4 buckets, and how do they apply to mental?
Yeah, so most of the things that happen in our lives that would cause some sort of mental or emotional problem, or maybe even a change, an upswing or a downswing, they kind of fall into 4 categories or buckets in our life. You have a situational thing. And the situational things can be great. They can be exciting and good, like a wedding of a family member, a graduation, a birthday party, birth of a child, birth of a grandchild, a raise, a promotion at work. Man, those are really good things, but they affect our emotional well-being. But then there are some situational things that are bad that happen to us as well. A divorce, a death, a tragic accident, the loss of a job, an unfulfilled expectation about something, or we really hope that something was going to work out one way and it didn't.
Right.
Where life just comes at us, and so
Something you don't have any control over.
Yeah.
no,
It
it's just
happens.
because we're human and we just live in a world with fallen people, and
And so you could have someone who's maybe they're not really dealing with mental health in some negative way, but then something kind of sideswipes them,
absolutely,
and now they're
they
off
can
kilter.
spiral.
Yeah. I've definitely been in that position before where it's like I feel like I'm doing really well mentally, and it just takes one, like you said, side swipe, one sweep of the legs to just knock you down.
Yeah.
And that's hard.
Yeah.
That's hard.
And they can come from anywhere. They can come from our family. They can come from outside our family. They could be triggered by anything, really.
So
Situational bucket.
that's one of them.
That's one of the buckets. Then we have kind of this biological bucket.
Okay.
It's just like our bodies are ridiculously complex, and they break down, and things go wrong with them. We have genetic issues. We have hereditary issues, things that happen in our life. You may have been born with a iron deficiency or a platelet deficiency, or something's different or whatever in your body. It's just not working. Maybe you are injured somehow. You get in an accident and your body is affected.
Right.
Your body hurts and it's just not functioning well, and it wears you out emotionally as you try to figure out. Maybe you've gone to multiple doctors. What's wrong with me? What's causing this?
Right.
I know we've experienced that in our family as well. We've had to, explore what's gone with, and you go to the doctor, and you go to the doctor, and you go to the doctor, and that's frustrating and just draining, and trying to figure out what's wrong with my body.
Right.
My body's not working well. So there is a biological aspect. There's a bucket that can happen. So something can just be wrong with your body. As you age, you go, our bodies break down over time. You go through menopause. You go through all these kind of things. Your bodies change. They cause issues.
Right.
Okay. And then there's a clinical or a medical thing.
Okay.
And I would put this category as to substance as in things that come into our bodies. So like alcoholism or drug addiction, or maybe you've had something that's biologically been wrong and it was diagnosed, and maybe you got the wrong medication.
Okay.
Or they gave you the wrong dosage of a medication. So there's something clinical or medical.
Right.
It's not your body, it's your body's reaction to something else that's being brought into your body that's causing a problem, a stress.
Sometimes you can be on a whole lot of medications, and then that can cause cascading
Oh, yeah,
effects.
you get one medication that is supposed to help with the side effects of this other medication
Right.
and all these kinds, and your body just reacts crazy. And so, you think, why do I have these headaches? Or why is my eyesight failing? Or why do I not have energy? There may be something clinical that's going on. And obviously we know that addictions are they're clinical based. And so addictions are dealt with by going through therapy to overcome those things. And so whether it's like a drug addiction, an alcohol addiction, a shopping addiction, a gambling addiction, a pornographic addiction, all those things trigger chemical things in our mind, but they require clinical help.
Gotcha.
They require somebody on the outside to say, hey, we got to get your meds right, or hey, you have to stop putting these substances in your body. This is causing bad things. So,
Right.
so there is a clinical kind of a medical deal. And then finally, there's a spiritual bucket. Scripture is very clear that we have an enemy that is lurking around the world, and Scripture tells us that he is here to steal, kill, and destroy.
Yeah.
He's here to mess things up. And so I don't believe that every issue is demonic, but we have seen it in our church. People who have come into our office, physically come into our office, and there is a demonic presence at work in their life.
Yeah.
And we could share stories about having exorcism type experiences in our church office. And this sounds weird and this sounds foreign, but it's a real thing. And so you constantly have to weigh, like, what's going on with me? And I believe that a lot of the things that we're diagnosed for, and this is just Chad's opinion, and we can disagree and still go to heaven. It'll be okay. But I think a lot of the things that we are diagnosed for clinically may be spiritual.
Sure.
They may be demonic in nature.
I see.
And so, if you give someone a medication to fight a demonic issue, it's not going to work.
Yep.
And so, that's what we have to figure out. What bucket am I dealing with? Is what's going on with me? Is it a spiritual attack? Is it a chemical attack? Is there something wrong with what's coming into my body? Is there just something wrong with my body? Is there a wound, something experience I'm getting over? Or is this just a result of the situation of the season of life I'm in? So that's a lot of things to really look at and kind of evaluate, but every one of them is real.
Right. So do you feel like someone could have an issue with all four buckets?
Oh, I feel like I know for a fact that post-COVID and post me being diagnosed with all the issues that I had going on, as I started taking all these new meds and things, and they were new into my body, I was going crazy because I was like, what is wrong with me?
Yeah.
Why do I cry with everything that comes on television? I'm watching Rocky IV crying.
Yeah, I cried at that too.
You're just like, what's going on? I don't understand. And you're just like, why in the world is this emotional to me? It's like, because I'm not that guy, but I'm like, what's happening? Yeah. Something's wrong. Something's different. Something's different.
Yeah.
And so I had to go to a counselor, and I literally said, I need help figuring out what's what. I need somebody that is outside of me, looking into me, and that may be saying, dude, this is spiritual.
Yeah.
Right.
Or will at least address the possibility that it's spiritual.
Yeah.
But then also say, hey, those meds are counterproductive. We need to take some of that away, or not as much of that, or do this, or we're going to be done with that one altogether. And so I just kind of had to go through every one of them. And so it's a long and frustrating process, but I feel like I'm so much better now.
That's good. That's good.
I feel like I'm so much better and have a better gauge. And I think I was given some tools by my counselor to kind of identify some of these things. Okay, here's some questions I need to ask in the moment. Did something unusual happen in my life today? Or was there something that was frustrating or whatever that could cause me to be a little different? Or did I not take my meds today? Or are we working on something really big at church where the enemy could be attacking and trying to stumble or confuse? So I go through a list of questions, and I have to say, is this true or not? Sometimes I ask Melissa. Sometimes I'll ask a counselor.
Yeah.
So
knowing what you know now about your experience and your buckets, getting your buckets in a row, if you will,
right.
What advice would you give to somebody who is trying to do the same thing? Like, I don't know what bucket this goes in. Do I even have buckets?
Yeah.
I feel like my buckets are scattered.
Yeah.
Like, what advice would you give to somebody who's trying to figure out where to put their stuff?
Don't do it alone, because you can't. Because we don't have the ability to look at ourselves objectively, okay?
Yeah.
Because we let our emotions and our feelings take over in those times, and we start to feel sorry for ourselves. We start to feel like, oh, I'm inadequate. I'll never overcome. Well, we know that that's the enemy speaking into us.
Yeah.
Those words are not from God at all. And so you need to get somebody around you, whether it's one of the new kind of mental health coaches we have here at church, or whether it is a professional counselor. You need somebody that can speak into your life objectively, and look back and say, okay, do you realize all of these things have happened to you? And you, oh, okay, no, I didn't realize that.
Right.
I didn't put all that together. So you need somebody that has a different view. And I waited much too long. I wish I would have done it so much sooner than I did. Because I feel better now. And I think I've been given a lot of tools to help me be better now. I'm not great. I don't have it all figured out. And I still have to figure out my buckets, and I still talk to a counselor. Not every week like I used to, but I still check up with them, and I want to make sure I'm on the rails and those kind of things. And I feel like I am in as healthy of a place emotionally and spiritually as I've been in a long time. Even though my body is breaking down, I feel like those other parts of me are maybe even better than they've ever been before.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
Well, I got to tell you, Chad, so there are a few pastors I've known that are like you in this respect, but it's still rare. It's so encouraging that you are that open about those things, because I think it's important for people, especially the folks that come, average person, or maybe new to Refinery, they're new to Jesus, to know that there's that kind of transparency with the leadership, because you shared your story, and for those that missed it, I just encourage you to go back and watch the first message, because you talk through the series of events that happened from 2018 to 2022, key moments, good and bad. So situational, biological, you kind of break down all those,
all of them.
And what that did is that showed us, like, as you say in your message, it's okay not to be okay. But I love that you closed it with the last line, which is,
it's not okay to stay
exactly
not okay.
Yeah.
None of it, we don't want to wallow in that.
Right.
And the scriptures are very clear. Ecclesiastes chapter 3 is very clear. There's a time for everything.
Yeah.
There's a time when your body hurts and you need to take a nap and you need to get some rest and you need to pull the shades and get under the covers and you need some physical rest.
Yep.
But you cannot stay there for weeks and days and months.
No, you got to move on.
You've got to get up and say, okay, I'm going to deal with this. I'm going to get some help. And that's what we want to be a part of.
And I think, like, sister church of ours has this as a core value. Transformation is the expectation of every believer, and I believe that's true.
100%.
So, like, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to be dealing with these things, but as a follower of Christ, like, we're to push forward. We're to be more like Him. We're to grow, and that requires us addressing these issues. So if we're not addressing them, they can linger, they can fester, they can get worse.
Yeah.
But, like, in your case, and again, that's why I love your transparency. Where you are now with all these things compared to, say, 2019 or 2020.
Yeah, it's not even close.
Yeah, because
it's not even close.
Because you addressed them, and so kind of in closing, like, this series is important, but why in your mind, in your own words, like, why should people participate with this? Why should they be a part and come? Because it's not really about attendance and showing up; it's getting them the help they need. So why is this message series so important?
So here's the deal, and this goes back to me talking with my counselor a couple months ago, and I just asked him kind of where we are in the state of things just as a society as far as mental health and what that looks like. And he explained it as we're kind of the snowball that's just starting to roll off the top of the mountain. He says this is going to be generational, and it's going to be for years and years. That ball is going to roll down the hill, and it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And so we want to be proactive in that. But we're here as the church to give people hope, you know. And Jesus says, "I've come to give you life and give it, to the fullest."
Right.
And so, how do we help people do that? How do they live in the tension of God's promises to them through His Word, and the tension of right now, I don't know what bucket this is, and so there's two realities that we live in, and I talked about those in the message as well. And so, helping people wade through that is critical to me. But more than anything, and I hope that men hear this, that our emotional health is not going to be fixed with duct tape. It's just not. It's just not. And so when we're healthy, our families are healthier.
Yeah. When
our families are healthier, our communities are better. When our community's better, everything's better. And so, guys, I just want to say, it's okay to let some people know that you're struggling, or you've got some questions or some concerns about something, and because you're not alone. And that's what the enemy does, is he wants to isolate us and make us feel like I'm the only one. Yeah. I'm the only one that feels this way, or I'm the only one, when actually everybody in the room would raise their hand.
Right.
But that's what he wants to do. He wants to feed us the lie of this is you're by yourself. And so we just want to overcome that lie with God's truth, and we want to see people redeemed and made better, and just making more progress towards mental, emotional health and Christ-likeness all at the same time.
Yeah.
And hopefully through us getting better, other people will see that and say, hey, there is hope. Because every one of our stories about someone getting better, someone is watching that.
Yeah.
And it's an encouragement. It's something that's spurring someone else on. So if we can be a part of those, maybe making a ripple of people getting better, man, what a great thing.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing your story and for being transparent and, just kind of explaining to us these buckets a little more. I think that's going to be a game changer for people who listen and think, okay, I've got to figure out what goes in what bucket.
What's what, yeah.
And I know that's been already a personal evaluation for me over the last couple of days. Like, oh, okay, maybe I've been putting this in the wrong bucket recently and I need to reevaluate. But having those close friends and having people that, can help me sort out those buckets, it's a game changer. So
for sure.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah,
Thank
great.
you for your input.
And
we're so thankful.
And I would just say, if you're new to the podcast or new to church, we want to invite you. If you're struggling with mental illness or mental health issues, or if you know someone who is, and that's typically the case. Either you're not, or you know someone who is.
94% of our people said they have someone close to them that is dealing with it.
So that's 94% of us.
Yeah.
So if that's you, we just want to welcome you to come and be a part. And actually, Perry is teaching next week, this Sunday, so we want to catch that. So this is going to be an incredible series for you to plug into. We're so excited that you joined us today, and thank you so much, Chad, for the extra time with
Thanks
you.
for what you guys are doing, pouring into this,
Absolutely.
making this known, getting it out there, and hopefully we're just giving permission to people to get some help and get better.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, guys.